Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everybody. Hold on, we're just working out the little technical issue here. Okay. All right, this is the call to order of the October 19th Citywide Council of Special Education calendar meeting. Welcome to the people on Zoom and people in the room. We're going to start with the introduction of the interpreters.
Can we have one of the interpreters speak and introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, my name is Andrew Matos. I'm a Spanish interpreter.
My name is Paulina Diaz. I'm a Spanish interpreter.
You have to give them the numbers also to dial in.
If you,
And it's-
para escuchar la conferencia en español, por favor marcar el 347-966-4114 y marcar la clave 167-397-066. De nuevo, 347-966-4114, clave 167-397-066 con símbolo de libra. Good evening. If you want to hear the Spanish interpretation, please dial 347-966-4114, pin 167-397-066, #. Thanks.
Thank you, and if I could, I don't have a lot in front of me, but I ask a member of the council to put the number in the chat. And also if I could ask a member to come to read along to the chat, directly in there. Okay, we're going to move on to roll call. Diana Abram,
Present.
Francine Almash, present. Renee Beckles Hanson, present. Carolyn Castro. Sorry, I couldn't be present. Heather Daly, present. Mark Gonzalez,
Present.
Lupe Hernandez, present. Tamara Reed. Me, I'm present. Shannon Terrell. Can you see on the line?
No, she's in the chat.
Can people on Zoom just confirm that they can hear us? I can't tell from the captions if it's picking us up. Okay, so we're gonna move on to the appointment of the timekeeper. Carolyn Castro, okay, Carolyn Castro is gonna be the timekeeper. Okay, so Carolyn is gonna be the timekeeper. So for tonight, we have a presentation from the Office of Special Education. So I'm going to hand it over to Dawn Hammer. I apologize on your meeting last week. Dawn, and if you could take your mind off of this, the center party. Thank you. All right,
Thank you so much for having us here tonight. My name is John Hammer, the Chief of Special Education. Tonight's update is largely going to be focused around development of a new special education management system. And it's going to be led by our partners, DIT and Experis, who's working on the development of the new system. We have a couple of updates and a couple of questions that we wanted to put out there that we received from the council. And I'm going to hand over to Hannah Rodriguez to share a couple of updates tonight.
Hi, how are you? This Monday, October 22nd, is Mary Louise Women's Tax Rate. We'll be starting in Madison Airport. And the Women's Workforce, it will start at 7 a.m. It's the celebration of disabilities, the justice, the right, and to bring in the family, all of them. And the second number is the student class update, we did have that was introduced. So I'm really calling them. I still I think, yeah, total 30, like, maybe cut the top, and maybe cut the middle and lower.
And what we see.
It's all right.
I'll sit there.
More importantly,
Okay, cool. Did you guys want to speak? Yeah. Okay. Okay, great. The first announcement was New York City's Disability Pride Parade, which is happening this Sunday, October 22nd. It starts at 10 a.m. at Madison Square Park, and it will parade down to Union Square Park. We'll be celebrating disabilities rights, pride with your friends and family, and join us. Second update is the student rep for the committee and for the council. We conducted several interviews. Hopefully by next meeting, we can narrow down who made the cut. But it's been a great process.
thank you, Johanna, for your work in conducting those, and leading the panel that has conducted those interviews. So that's been, I've heard great things about all the students that have come forward or looking forward to that, and I'm really, I'm finding that the short representative for this CCSE very shortly. A couple other quick points. We had some questions around AI as it pertains to the special education inbox. I just want to clarify that the folks that have always managed our escalations will continue to manage our escalations. That will be Johanna, that will be Shah, that will be, our team, Central Special Education Office. Our specific student concerns will never be managed by AI. What we will be doing is transitioning to a customer support platform that's going to offer a variety of features that will enhance and improve family engagement for all of us. Many of our families that do reach out may reach out with a question that's very simple in nature around things like, where do I get information on enrollment? Where do I get information on transition? This platform may be able to provide direct response to the family and pass that family off to where that information can be received. Anything that's an escalation of support that specific to a student, that's going to continue to be managed by our team, but this platform is going to help on that front. It will also better allow us to track parent escalations, track questions that come in, and then really in the future, I think there are engagement efforts to comments certainly coming in the inbox. So that is what is happening there on that front, and want everybody to know that there will always be a face behind the work that we do and ensure that specific student needs are responded to. Just on transportation, I think folks are generally aware that a tentative agreement had been reached between bus companies and ATU 1181. While bus routes are running, rideshare and/or reimbursement continues to be an option if there are delays in the assignment of a route to a student with IEP specialized transportation recommendations. If families are experiencing that, they should contact OPT. Rideshare is also available if the student cannot ride the bus due to lack of a paraprofessional or a nurse. Parents should reach out to the special education inbox if their student is District 132 school. A student is in District 75, they should reach out to the District 75 superintendent's team. And if instance, the student attends non-public or private schools, then they should reach out to their CSE. Again, special ed inbox will support if needed, but those are the direct points of contact for those pieces. In the unlikely event that there is a work stoppage, those options and other contingency measures will be activated to ensure students are able to get to and from school safely and on time. Those include the distributions of those metric plugs that it's in schools and public streets. That's it for me for tonight, and I'm going to hand it over to our colleagues in DIT. Val?
I'm sorry, can we take a few questions?
Sure.
On, yeah.
Yes.
I have a question about the disability card parade. Is it true that there's no tabling of the parade this year?
Yes, so we are going to be marching at the grade and was not at the board.
Right, but are other groups, I mean, we had some, I don't know if you know about this, but
I think there's no tabling. I think there were some issues with the permits and things like that, so they're not gonna have tabling for anybody. It's my understanding.
I have just two questions about the AI and the transportation, and then. Sure. So for the AI inbox, I think one of the questions that a lot of us have is, so we need to follow sort of what that message look like, but what I want to know is, so you say you're gonna track the escalations, which means you'll be able to produce data, so will you provide that data to us so that we can see what issue you're tracking and how it matches up with what we're hearing?
I think that absolutely would be more than willing to talk about transition installation honestly. You know, I don't know that, you know, we haven't fully transitioned yet, Francine, and so I think that as that unfolds, we want to keep folks, you know, what we're seeing, we want to hear from you about what we're seeing, and happy to share your information.
I think it would be great if we could take it for a test run and think about like what happens when you call, when you're an upset parent and you call that helpline and how many loops do you have to go through before you can press 0 to get.
Is the helpline gonna be similar to the CT?
So and you're not gonna get more information, I mean, as I understand it, you're gonna get, you're still reaching out to the special education inbox, right? You're gonna get a live person that's going to respond. Maybe there'll be an order generated reply on the first edition of your message that might in fact solve your issue.
Right.
But somebody's going to continue to monitor the inbox. We're not, it's not going to look like a full line. It's not what we're envisioning. It's any way, shape, or form. I don't see that it's going to be attached and vulnerable. Like this is specific to, you know, direct email and
Yeah, so
AI supported or automated responses in the event that we can get you information.
I think it would be great for the council to see the topics of escalation and also the time. And then I'm gonna, my colleagues who work with busing, you know, I'm gonna handle it with them in a second, but my question is, so it's similar about the busing issue, the transportation. You said you're gonna be tracking the calls for parents who are having to come to Paris and getting to and from school. Is that data, can you provide that data to us as well, so we can see what?
As absolutely, as we get into the new system, we would have to share. Yes.
So I saw Lupe and then Heather.
Regarding the ride share, are those codes available to students that have the paras and nurses on the buses so that the morning, like many parents that have reached out to me in cases where it's like the parent calls in the morning up and they're saying they're not available, but they don't have that ride share code to be able to access it. I've yet to hear from any parent that has that access to that ride share code to use.
Yeah.
In these eligible scenarios, the way we had access to them via summarizing, like they all disappeared, like even parents that had access to them over summarizing, and I know why, the code had SR specifically tied to summarizing. No one I know has the new school year codes, and I'm just wondering.
I mean,
Who has used it in this school year?
I think families that are still awaiting the engagement of the paraprofessional service, so who are a nurse are using it, is my understanding.
But for one off, so within a day.
I think what I would say to council, and I would say to families that are listening at home, is if you are experiencing ongoing challenges with paraprofessional absences or nursing absences, you should let us know. And we will work with the CSE, and we will work with the folks there to figure out what we can do around, you know, potentially creating goals to support with that situation.
Well,
And or getting substitute, more importantly, getting substitute coverage in place, which
obviously, that is the key, that is the goal, and both paraprofessionals, nurses, and our matrons are not under the same contract negotiations that have been tentatively agreed upon with the HCU unions, and I think that's like I raised this at the last meeting, I know, John, you know, as much as we were coming together, but I just want the public and to be on the record that like DO needs to do their part in upholding that finance piece to pay these people a living wage in order for them to stay in this job. That is vital. I also want to suggest that these codes be available ahead of time. Because I think what happens is, you know, you have parents that are struggling to get to work. And if they are waiting for their bus and the bus can arrive and the parent has it, and that's when they're finding out, or they're maybe finding out 45 minutes before their bus time. I mean, this helpline, the AI, all of this OPT, no one's gonna get this family code to be able to utilize that ride share to get the student to school on time, but if it was available to them already, the way it was for summer rising, you needed it, you could book it. I feel like these are proactive steps, and we spent a lot of money on this ride share, and I don't even think that it's being used to its particular. Yeah, it's potential like that.
I appreciate you.
Heather, one second, I just wanted to know that Shannon Terrell is here. Welcome, really good. Okay, so Heather and then.
So just in follow-up to Lupe, for folks who don't have a rideshare code, I know a lot of parents are just paying out of pocket for car service to get their kids to and from school. And I'll just use myself as an example. I submitted a receipt from the first day of summer renting and I have not been reimbursed. And that's been almost 4 months. So parents, you know, I've heard parents spending $300, $900 a month to get their kids to and from school. And then they're waiting months and months and months for reimbursement. And for some, that's like half their rent, you know? And so I just want to raise that as something that I think really needs to be looked at and addressed, because it just takes entirely too long for parents to get reimbursed for money that they pay out of pocket for a service that their child's entitled to have. In their identity. And it's not really fair to make parents wait 6 months, 9 months to get paid back for their out-of-pocket expenses. I'm done.
Sharon?
Excuse me,
Okay,
and everyone speak up louder so the interpreters can hear you?
yeah.
Yeah.
It helps to get closer to the, to the television, maybe we have to go on to the. Yeah. Shannon, is it okay?
Yes.
But could you come to the seat?
No, it's my car, I'm in your space. Keep coming in and out. Okay.
So I wanted to talk about the parents. So sometimes okay, so there was an incident the other day with my son. And a teacher called me and she said that he touched somebody inappropriately. Now, I was kind of stuck because he's supposed to have a para and nobody notified me that he didn't have one. He told me that he didn't have a para and he said that his teacher was telling him to shut up.
Moving on.
Now, this isn't the first time it happened. Last year, he didn't have a para for 3 months and nobody said anything. And then they had a para come down and see it, but they kept raising him as a bad policy. You know, he's just going all in the classroom. But he had a blanket that he's had from the time he was little. And the doctor said, "You're not taking it from him." And I know it's on the school, they were taking the blanket from him, and then he was reacting. And then they were just labeling him saying he's out of control, he's attacking people. He didn't have a power. I had to put in a report, and then he got a power that day at 12 o'clock, and they asked like he already had a power. And I said to them, "Which one is the power?" So when they pointed the guy out, I seen him where every kid got on in the school started. But incidents like this could be avoided if they have a parent, but then they're not notifying the parents that there is no parent, and then you can't go into the school.
Very sorry for that. There's a lot of training that is required.
Yes.
I'm very sorry to do that. I think there's a lot of training that's required. But I would just hope that you and I can have some kind of breaks. So we can learn so today.
Thank you.
We had, Mark, and then Karen, and then Mary was. Talk louder, please. Mark, Carolyn, and then Clear.
So, John, earlier this week, the mayor had a press conference, we mentioned that the 60-day limit is going to go back for our migrant students. After those 60 days, they have to go through a reapply process, but as per federal law, students are still allowed to stay at their current school. The challenge is, and we basically put it on a transport to figure out how to transport that student to the school. Now, the problem we have right now is we know we don't have enough bus drivers, and today, without that migrant population now maybe completely displaced, we still have the school. So where is the chance of going with making sure that we still fill the routes that currently exist for our general ed students and the capabilities, we know we've already got the shortage, at least I've been able to get it. And then now we've got additional need for drivers. What is the chance of telling them to do? And it's tough, I get it, can't do nothing, can't do this.
Well, I would say that I think everybody's focus here is on consistency of service providers and there's very vulnerable student population. And so while the decision may result in challenges for transportation, I think that providing continuity of service there is very important for the specific student population. So I think that is the thing that we're trying to uphold, making sure it's that you know, have maybe started working with a related service provider to get the opportunity in that space. And more, I think there raised valid concerns around how we transport so many new students. And you know, I know that our partners at OPT are working through that, and you know, I can circle back to them for a more specific response on this, but you know, I just want to acknowledge the intent there of the policy. Appreciate that. Thank you.
So I think we just need consistency.
Sorry, one question. Point before you want to go. Sorry. So my question as I turn is with regard to cities, and I don't know if that would be the speakers coming, but I think there's an issue with trust given the recent breaches in student data. And I'm wondering, I'm asking how the DOE would approach bridging the gap of trust for families that may not necessarily understand how the back end works in the developing students, but all they know is that they've seen maybe 2 or 3 reports in recent history where students in the past there's been a breach of student data. So I know that you may not understand this.
I'm sure that we can talk a little bit about that, and that might be a good transition if there are no other questions.
Samira, I think you have a question?
Yeah.
How are we going to 18 minutes. 18 minutes left in the section.
Excuse me for my glasses, some people don't know what happens. I found out my second parents and like 8-year-old neighbors. Hello. So this is bringing up, I guess a bigger question, right, or a bigger concern that we talked about, I think in the September, which was about that 95% compliance, which works in real time or in a real way. And I think that one of the problems is, you know, this sort of move, this shift that we've noticed to this verbal confirmation or verbal consent being given. So instead of signing an IEP meeting, you know, who was there, it's like, well, the parent gave verbal consent, this person gave verbal consent. or harbor support, gave verbal consent, yeah, kid passed, kid met all goals, like kid is, advancing, meeting goals, etc. So this is sort of the thing that I see a lot with families and parents and speaking to them in school and other schools. And this goes into the parents situation as well, right? I know that there have been at least 2 instances just this year where a parent has been taken away from a student and put into another classroom altogether because there was an instructional staff sort of deficit. So the student went without a parent for 3 months, same situation that Shannon was speaking to. And I think that what happens is, some people who don't understand are like, well, how would you not know that your kid didn't have a parent for several months? Kids expect adults to be communicating. They do what is, they do what you tell them to do, basically. You're setting the parameters for them. And so you're not going to necessarily hear about it. Right. And this goes into the next situation that I wanted to bring up with compliance and with consent. Lots of services are getting changed without speaking to parents and guardians, and it's not actually an IEP on the written record change, but a service is being changed. So somebody might go from, individual counseling twice a week to group all of a sudden. How did that happen? They asked the child who really wanted to be in the group, would that be okay with you? This happens so frequently that it just blows my mind. And then the child doesn't necessarily tell the parent because kids don't tell their parents everything. Or they think that this decision was made with the parent and the team. They don't question that. And they also are intimidated. And so that's something that I wanted to bring up, that this has happened multiple times that I can document for you, where the child isn't going to say no to the teacher or to whoever it is that's asking consent to change that service, right? Not only do they not necessarily understand the legality of it or the choices, but they're intimidated. They don't want to say no to their teacher. So this is something that I would just really, it's a broader training issue, it's a compliance issue. How we can get that, that going where everything is back on paper, it's documented where parents can notified if there's any shift happening at school, and that shouldn't happen, period, without, a meeting without consent of everyone. So I just wanted to put that on your radar, because it does go into, the parent situation, which is problematic and really heartbreaking, when you hear how common it is for a child's parent to be taken away from them and to be placed somewhere else, not even in the same classroom. And it's also not fair to our paraprofessionals who are there for their own development and their own reason, their own, duties to be used in that way either.
I think now both ways to have consistency, it's probably no more important to have consistency and if you want one paraprofessional. And so I absolutely agree you on that. And I agree that it's a multifaceted issue and one that we can immediately do some training on. And 2, I think we should continue the conversation around longer term solutions, which I hear you on parents sitting down at the IEP meeting table, and that is something we made clear should be available to parents upon request. And most schools should be really telling parents that the only option is a virtual option for an IEP meeting. No IEP should be changed without the parental notification and consent. We certainly don't want to put students in a situation where they are, asked about changes to their services without their parents being notified. That's not our policy. And I think that our new system may help on some of this, right? Because I think we envision a future state where you're not waiting for that paper copy of the IEP, where you're able to kind of log in and see exactly what your child's recommended for. And we have a little bit of that now with NICSA, right? And I think we have plans of strengthening that at the time. So, all that to say, I think it's probably a good time to bring in some of our partners for DIT, talk about the work that we have planned for the data management system, which will help on this front as well.
And I think just, I just want to very briefly, one part of that, just, I think it would be advantageous or helpful, right, for children to know who their case managers is before October, November. There are several children, so many that don't have a case manager, their parent does not know who the point person is, the case manager for the child, right? So you don't know who to talk to at your school, it's very hard to navigate, and a lot of this communication would just be clear if you could just talk to that person who is the case manager for your child. I mean, I know, my son's, so it's like, and it's not just me, it's hundreds of kids, right? That might help the system, right? To get that set up earlier.
I agree you and, I think the intent there is that the child's teacher is their case manager, and I know that sometimes in middle school, when kids are transitioning to multiple classes, it's challenging. And so I would encourage you to talk to your child's principal and assistant principal to say, who's my point person for my child's case. It shouldn't be too difficult of a question for a school administrator to answer. And we're also always there to support, right? But I hear you.
I think it's just more that the issue of not having.
And I have a question, and there's one question from you, go ahead.
So Joan, I have a question about the living process, for children especially. They don't pick up on the 11, and so I have a few parents who actually have different developmental variations who need to look for school, but it just will happen in their district, they're not really aware of which school can necessarily support their child's needs. And so there is a guidance counselor at the school that sort of help and said these are the school, a lot of schools, these are the children particularly who have IEPs for a general ed settings, but may get additional services, may need particular types of services. But some of the middle schools in the district may not be able to support those services. So is there a place for parents to go where they can get the help, somewhere to the family welcome center in their district? In particular District 5, but they don't feel necessarily with the issues around special children's IEP. So I wanted to know for parents who are starting that function to get towards the school that if so happen the district they're in does not meet their kid need, can they look at school that they do district and who would help them with that process?
I think ultimately, we do have some guidance out there for schools, for them offering accessible course to families, students with IEPs. So, we just contacted several superintendents about making sure that they were aware of this message out there. We will also be working to make sure that it gets out of those schools. We had a conversation just yesterday about the case of making on our website very quickly. But I think tonight we answer your questions. Parents can ask these questions of the school which they're considering applying to, and the principal and his staff there and that position to respond to any specific question I have around. We have suite providers on staff, occupational therapists, physical therapists, concerned about this. When the service delivery model is going to meet this school, maybe be much better position to answer those questions.
I'm talking about the part where we don't even know which schools to choose to even go on a tour to. So I have a child with this I'll give you as an example. My son was specifically tailored a program to support his needs, but we don't have a school, middle school in my district for it. So if I just use me as an example, where would I go to say what schools are supporting kids with these particular needs in the district? And if it's out of my district, is it okay that I tour those schools and ask that question?
Yeah, I mean, that is a great question, it's one that we have a lot of work to do as a school district. I would say that, first and foremost, we have to start. Second, if I were advising the parent on this book, I would look for schools that have centrally funded special education or teachers within that school building. That is a kind of all the strings and then what's the literacy of mentioned and that the indications to the literacy of somebody that only you know, in OG based great world. So I might also be tapping into some of the chancellor's work around those two weeks, and I might ask questions of those schools around what is their level of readiness in some of the work. I might ask questions around the mentions that we can submit for those schools in the last year or so. And I can also, I can put together, I can connect to our others at the University of Black and get some more information. And other work to this, but we need the organization to do better for the jobs.
Thank you.
I just wanna check in with the council, or your board person from the audience, we're gonna have a follow-up with 8 minutes left on the presentation, 6 minutes left on the presentation, so, would the council like to vote to extend the presentation for another 30 minutes? 30 minutes, okay, and be prepared to table something on the agenda. So, somebody make a motion on the table to extend the presentation for 30 minutes, a motion to extend the time 30 minutes. Somebody second the motion? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so pass the vote, and then 30 seconds, 30 more seconds, 30 minutes. So, Rosalia, this person, posed the question, if the Saturday seed programs are open?
Yes. Yeah, we're going full steam ahead. It's been open, I want to say 3 weeks now. And I broke around 70 weeks on sites and moving up. I think it's, I can get enough to do that.
Thank you. I'm very, Councilman Hampton, thank you so much for bringing this up because I did have it on my list of things to bring up. I did bring it up to my local superintendent regarding admissions last night, actually. And one thing was clear as a parent of a student with dyslexia, in an ICT setting, ASD, all 3 of the Ds, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and I asked our principal, I asked the counselor, even within my own first team meeting with my IEP team at my school and my school complete support team, have been talking about what are my options within my district, and pointed out so because we work so I'm lucky because our school, my elementary school also provided a pilot to serve our students with dyslexia early on before NYC reads. I'm very lucky that the team of educators at our school have been trained in OG. That is very rare. It's funded through our PTA. But no one, and any of our superintendent, to our principal, to the guidance counselors, to the teachers, and the welcome center. I went to my welcome center last week to ask this very question. And they didn't even have the actual physical guide. I had to get Mark. No one knew what schools to tour. Like no one could give me any guidance. There's guidance on many other programming that I don't need to mention, but it's all there. And a question even family members were asking is if you're not in a NEST AFD program, maybe you didn't get in during the Turning 5 program, you didn't get in during first grade, third grade. How do you even get evaluated at this point? Like, I mean, is there even enough time to say AFD NEST? Is my child eligible to even look at one of the schools in our district? And there's only one in my particular district. There's certain districts that don't have any. And so I just, enrollment, if we can, in special education, can work with enrollment in making, because many of us have been going through this since early intervention. And there was a very hand-holding process when we went from early intervention into CPA. And it got a little less during turning 5, but there were so many parent advocates and webinars and enough information that if you were looking, you could find it as a parent. I felt somewhat supported turning 5, somewhat. Didn't get what we needed, that's why we're here now. But now it's middle school and it's like, figure it out. You know, the Hunger Games, and I don't know, but I would like.
Want to add that in addition to regarding and they talk about the problems with finding programs. I think the middle school and middle school have that. Even if we magically somehow find programs, right? It is a nightmare. Because of the lottery-based system, it still almost doesn't matter, right? Because you spend still literally in the lottery to get into the program. And so it just means that students, particularly these, there's just so many hurdles. And then even if you clear those hurdles, there's no guarantee that because let's be real, high school application, middle school application, you come to this 12 schools, right? So now we're making we can magically find 20 programs, and we know that's not the fun. Maybe you'll find, if you're lucky, probably 2, right? And now you literally have to win the lottery to get on the list. And so it's almost impossible. So even if you find all these things you're saying, you ask all the right questions, right? You still have to go into this pool with the other tens of thousands of students who are applying for, 3 seats. And there's like 500 applicants for that. So, which I know you didn't invent the enrollment system, but this is.
I was just gonna say, I have my oldest is in 8th grade. I'm going through the process. And I understand, and I am hopeful that it will work out, and ultimately is going down wherever the child lands, we're there to help. And we're working very hard. And I think the chancellor and the mayor are on the page on literacy. Like, if we're able to execute their vision, you won't have to recruit. You will have somebody, you'll be able to know you will have somebody next to this training, and that is, the expectation is that everything is training. You gotta just, and I know that doesn't make anybody feel good right now if you don't do the process. But we gotta, like, if we can support the overall mission, the school system.
I think a follow-up to that, then I do see Shannon, is that even with the mayor and the chancellor's vision, for middle and high schoolers, it's not clear to me how that is gonna, we keep talking about this generation of children that has not been taught to read. That is the generation of children that's now applying to middle and high school. And as far as I understand, these initiatives are all for younger grades. And so I'm not seeing how what you said and what I'm not seeing how this can close that gap at all.
We should talk more about that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a bigger conversation. Shannon.
Okay, so, first I want to say, what you were saying about, like going to college and everything. Some people don't realize that you can still use your services in college. I didn't know that. So I wasted a lot of time, but I couldn't get the services. But I just wanted to, go back to the communication with the bus service. Like they feel aware that there's a system in place that if the bus driver is not there, that a message could be shot to them so that they can pull everybody. Because like, the other day, the bus driver let me know he wasn't gonna be here, he said it would be a new driver, but no one showed up that way, and that's not the first time that happened.
We will definitely take that back to OPT. I know that there is some work around GPS, and we'll try to reach out to them.
So I'm going to suggest that we now finally move on to the IT and hand it over to the dean government player and
I do apologize. Connection is not very clear, but did I hear that it's coming to us, to DIT, talk about SDMS?
That's right.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I don't know if anyone knows me. My name is Val Player. I'm Executive Director for representing DIT for special education systems, overseeing CAP, CCSE, and some other special education related applications. Today, we actually will present update on the new systems that being built, SEDMS, Special Education Data Management System. As you know, we started this project in 2021, and we had a substantial progress. And I would like to present our partners, our vendors who got subcontracted, and our partners who are actually building the system, Team Experis, specifically Solution Delivery Director Vadim Kellerman. We have subject matter experts on a Team Experis, Content Redmond and Anna Lemons. With this, I'm going to turn it to Vadim, please continue with update.
Sure. Thanks, Val. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. I'm sharing my screen. I'm assuming everybody can see. If not, please let me know. And let me know if everything is big enough to easily follow along. So as Val said, my name is Vadim Gellerman. I'm the Solution Delivery Director for the Special Education Data Management System project. I've taken over the role from Ron Turetsky, who retired earlier this year. Pleasure to meet everybody here. And I'd like to take you through a current state analysis of where we are with the project and just general information about the Special Education Data Management System.
Can you put it in the slide view, please, so that it's marked?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that.
Okay.
Okay, excellent. So to start, we'll go through our agenda. So first and foremost, the goal is to reintroduce you to the Special Education Data Management System. Now, again, I believe this was presented last year with an analysis between CCSE and SEDMS, some of the differences and challenges, and what SEDMS will ideally solve. We'll cover some of those again in case anyone was not present at that meeting, and then jump straight into the work that's been done over the past year and a half for the special education project. So from a formal objectives perspective, the goal of the SEDMS project is to provide a single, integrated, and flexible system to support both preschool and school-age students with disabilities, right, or anyone with special needs. The intent behind this is to replace the two disparate systems that exist currently, CAP and CCSE, and combine them into a single system that supports the needs of the special education office as well as all of the students within the programs easily and intuitively. The next objective is, of course, to improve and support the delivery of special education programs, related services, and to improve outcomes for students with disabilities. To allow the management of workflows and guided system functionality for end users so that they can go through the special education process, going from referral at the start all the way through placement, service delivery, and encounter attendance. Of course, the system is meant to capture all relevant information, events, and documents. It's incredibly robust in the amount of data it captures and the conclusions and the analysis that it will allow DOE and New York City Public Schools to manage going forward. One of the major goals, of course, is to allow families to interact with New York City Public Schools to review IEPs, evaluations, submit referrals, to be able to provide consent, digital signatures, and so on, to ease the overall process and communication that has to take place between parents and schools and the Department of Education. Last but not least, to enable proactive monitoring and reporting of all critical milestones associated with the process, along with allowing us to keep track of compliance dates and other key features and information that are necessary to keep this moving as quickly and as efficiently as possible. Some of the challenges that exist today include the fact that there are multiple systems or too many systems between CCSE, CAP, various supporting systems that exist within the department, and a large focus and a large amount of work that happens offline or through just non-IT systems, be it Microsoft, Google, other products as well. There are also multiple databases currently at hand. So there's duplicate information that's continuously kept in sync, processes and jobs that run and synchronize data together from disparate systems. And all of that data has to be translated, reconciled, and synced, which causes its own issues. But similarly, with the amount of databases that exist, reporting from an end-to-end perspective between preschool and K-12 students is nearly impossible. The current technology spans roughly 40 years of software and databases. You have CAP as a mainframe. You have CCSS, which was introduced, I think, was it about 18 years ago or so? And just in general, the systems are obviously due for a refresh. And last but not least, the fact that there are islands of information across all of these different systems makes it incredibly difficult to manage anything. In terms of our project delivery process, again, this is something that was discussed at the last meeting, but at its core, our focus is on human-centered design and clickable prototypes, which are done through our research and analysis phase. So we've interviewed and interacted with various groups along with the IIT to ensure that we have a very detailed understanding of how to design and the focus that we need to place on the various functions and screens within the system. From a technical design perspective, we focus on process rules, compliance dates, notifications and events, and just the ability of the system to keep track of when things are due and to enable users of the system to easily interact with the child's case. And then the last phase, of course, is the build SCDMS phase, development of the system, quality assurance and testing, user acceptance testing, and so on. Now, specifically, I'd like to call out our design approach here. So human-centered design is a vital part of the approach to this project as a whole because of its focus on interaction with various user groups, specifically with the users actually interacting with the system. Once we've identified the various categories of users, we've performed over 117 formal interviews, followed by dozens and dozens of subsequent elicitation sessions with key stakeholders, different departments, different users of the system, to ensure that we have a robust understanding of not only the pain points that exist today across the different systems, but also general process, general patterns of work, allowing us to focus our design on not only removing the pain points, but on making a very intuitive system that allows users to very easily identify what they need to do on a specific child's case. As we identified the likes and the pain points, we then went into business process improvement recommendations. Now, again, there are processes that exist today because of technical limitations or because of limitations that existed in technology at the time these applications were built. And a lot of that has changed as technology has improved. So through improvements in technology and through general interviews and communication, there are numerous business process improvements that have went into the design of a special education system, allowing for more collaborative, more aligned work. You can see at the list below, we have the various groups and personas that we've talked through when conducting these interviews to ensure that we have a very good spread of the different personas and users when we're gathering this information. So now I'm going to move into all new information that has not yet been presented at that last meeting. So first and foremost, over here you can see our modular breakdown of the special education system. Now, these modules are mostly a mechanism for us to be able to group functionality into a common sector and allowing us to develop a workflow for how you transition from place to place. Obviously, the actual functionality within the modules is very specific to what users are able to do. Starting at the top, we of course have referrals. So this module includes the initial referrals and requests for initial referrals. It includes the ability for referrals from early intervention, as well as referrals on behalf of somebody else, and takes you all the way through the ability to schedule the social history meeting. The DOH-MH EI transition module focuses on students that are not yet of the age to enroll in preschool and allows DOH-MH as a department and as an agency to directly interact with their specific screens and functions within the SCDMS project. This allows them to upload data, documents, fill out specific information about their child, and as part of the Turning 3 process, when it comes time to do a referral into the preschool system, it allows for a very easy mechanism to make that happen. Student profile is a module that was essentially created specifically for this project. The intent behind it is it's a profile page for those that use Facebook or other tools. It's very similar to that. And the intent of it is to provide a single place to see all relevant information about your child, right? This information includes general information from the student information system, so demographic, biographic info. It includes information specifically about a child's case, so where they are in the special education process, whether their reevaluation is currently happening or if this is an initial referral, et cetera. And it shows an at-a-glance summary of the various services that the child might be receiving. So program services, related services, transportation, all of this information is located within student profile, allowing for a single place where a case manager or the user is able to easily see where that child is in the system. Now, Parent Portal is probably the more important or one of the most important modules that we're providing. Now, I believe Parent Portal was talked about last time, but just to give you a brief summary, the intent behind Parent Portal is to expand the current NICSA functionality, which allows parents to view specific information about their child and augment it with specific data from special education. But that's not necessarily enough. So what we're envisioning and what we're building towards is the ability for parents to see all relevant special education data about their child within this Parent Portal module, which is accessible obviously to parents of those children. This would include ability to view relevant documents related to the child's case, the ability to download said documents so that you could read them, including things like an IEP. It allows for the ability for us to integrate with a digital signature solution, be it DocuSign or Adobe Sign, where a case manager or specific school staff are able to send documents to a parent in order for them to sign, where they could see the notification directly within Parent Portal. They can open the document, they can sign it, all of that with the intent to ease the communication and ease the availability of information to parents of these children. Next, we have the IEP module. Again, this is I don't want to say very similar to CCSE, but the intent of the IEP module is, of course, to allow users to fill out and complete an IEP. In terms of just functionality, we've made things, we're allowing concurrent users and editors, there's change tracking, it's a lot more collaborative. And the intent is to allow the IEP to be filled out faster, but also through very easy in SEDMS collaboration without the need to go offline into emails or Teams messages or anything else, so that users have a record of everything that's going on. Reporting and analytics covers the various reports that exist within SEDMS that allow users to quickly see the data they need to decide what actions need to be taken. Placement covers the actual placement availability, the rosters, and the ability to match a child and place a student in the appropriate setting. Encountering, of course, keeps track of the actual encounter attendance, so the sessions between the mandates between children with the required mandates, the providers, the session notes, and other key data elements, and of course ties into the billing and Medicaid reporting and claiming. The provider management is essentially one module that we split into 3 submodules. One focused on the ability to assign and manage internal and external evaluators or providers for evaluation completion, along with the ability to easily support their capacity and keep track of any gaps, or if the department needs to bring in additional resources or external resources. Same thing for provider assignment, except focused on provision of services instead of the ability to complete evaluations. And then, of course, as I said, capacity planning, the ability to manage workload, staff availability, to be able to forecast and see if there's a shortage or if there's additional needs. The last couple of modules are essentially system-wide modules. They cover functionality that actually exists in the modules already mentioned, but document management and translation covers the ability to generate and translate various documents that the system must generate and display for parents. Communication covers emails, calendar integration, alerts, and reminders, and general system functionality that is meant to increase the velocity at which users can interact with the system. Billing and contract management covers.
To join us, to bless us, and be proud of all that we do, and all that we wish for, and all that we build for. Let us now close our eyes. Each time
Did anybody else hear that, or was that just me?
We hear it.
Okay. And moving on to administration. So administration is essentially mostly an IT or super user type function, the ability to manage users, roles, calendars, alerts, triggers, and notifications, and general system-wide administrative functionality in terms of how approvers or workflows or other items are set up. So moving on into our design framework. So as I had mentioned before, we follow the human-centered design methodology. The intent behind the creation of this UX UI design framework is to ensure that not only are all of our screens, our wireframes, and our components built around user needs, but that we're also fully accessible. To that end, we're utilizing a framework called Kendo, which provides out-of-the-box WCAG AA accessibility compliance, along with full file weight compliance, which is the primary intent behind any government software. We've ensured to align that typography, colors, and other design elements are created with accessibility and ease of use in mind. So whether it's color blindness or any other issues, we've accounted for it and made sure that the system is as easy to use for everybody as it possibly could be. And of course, one of our biggest priorities is high-level user experience, which is minimizing the additional clicks, minimizing how many places a user has to look at to understand data or to understand where their child is, prioritizing key data in sections of the application to make it easy to see, the creation of call to actions, which ensure that users don't have to guess where they are or what their next action is for a specific child's case, and general information architecture best practices. We've similarly created high-level wireframes to represent some of this key functionality that's cross-cutting and is used across the system. So things like single or multi-step forms with progress trackers, allowing users to see how far they are into filling out a form, for example, an IEP form, which obviously has tons of sections, tons of collaborators, and so on. Designs for meeting schedulers and calendars, which allow users to actually schedule a meeting. It integrates with Office 365 for DOE staff so that they could see their real-time availability when scheduling said meetings. And of course, one of the most important concepts we created for users is this student information panel concept, which is a reusable student-based header that appears on every single student-related page, allowing for a quick and easy mechanism to see all of the relevant child information in one place. So things like where the case is, where they are in the process, if there's a red alert, if there is any disability information, etc. Now, as I mentioned, Parent Portal is incredibly important, and we've chosen to specifically spend a little more time talking about it because it was one of the topics that came up at the last CCSE section. So number one, Parent Portal is designed and integrated and of course exposed via the existing Nexus system, which allows parents to make use of functionality they're already familiar with. So there won't need to be a secondary account sign up. There's not a separate website or web address to remember. It's all integrated from one place. You're signing in once and then able to access data related to your child, including the special education data as necessary. Within Parent Portal, we're also allowing a user to view any related data and documents that are related to special education. So this includes the ability, as I had said, to download things like an IEP or to download potentially a prior written notice or so on, and to be able to interact with these documents directly from the Parent Portal with full visibility. Primarily, the goal with the Parent Portal is to really make it as easy as possible for parents to know exactly what's going on with their child's case at any point in time. So as you log in and you're able to see all of this data, our intent is that there aren't a ton of questions that you have after viewing this where you have to get in contact with the case manager, with other school staff to understand where that child's case is. It should all be intuitive. It should all be visible. And of course, anything where digital signatures or consent or others could be provided via Parent Portal, we would be allowing for that. But of course, also allowing for legacy mechanisms or other mechanisms as needed, be it mailing letters or coming in person and so on. But the goal is to make Parent Portal as robust and as easy for parents to use as possible so that they never have questions or concerns about where their child is in the process. Last but not least, we have 2 slides left. So this is a basic CSIS versus CDMS side-by-side comparison that we had created earlier on in the project. And to give you a summary, we've covered some of the various pain points or gaps that existed within the original system and how we've covered them within our design for the SEDMS project. For example, there are no separate systems for preschool and school age. It's all now one system with relatively similar workflows. Now, of course, there are some differences for preschool versus school age, but ultimately it's one system and there's a lot of commonality. Again, parent portal, interactive parent experience, progress monitoring, access to child's documents. Within CDMS itself, for NYCPS users, we have the concept of dashboards. The intent of these dashboards is so that as a user logs in, they are able to see what they need to be working on as part of their general caseload. Think of it as somewhat of a to-do list. Here are all the cases that I'm currently responsible for. They're sorted in a specific priority-based order. Here are the actions I must perform on each of these children's cases. And it allows very quick, very easy interaction to determine what the next steps are. For IEP specifically, we've enabled simultaneous collaboration across multiple users. Currently, CSIS allows one user at a time to edit a document. We're allowing it to be collaborative because IEPs, of course, have a large number of collaborators that interact with them as they're filled out. Within CDMS, we have the concept of a case, which is something that was purely conceptual within CSIS. And for us, a case is essentially a collection of all events related to a specific student since they've started inside the special education process. So from the initial referral all the way through if they're discharged, declassified, etc., it covers every single event through their entire history. Right. So even if they had left the New York City public school system for a couple of years and came back, all of that is still tied to a specific student. It's still tied to a specific student's case. It's all there, historical data, all viewable, all interactive. Of course, user management is handled now with IDM and SSO. Provider management is now allows for both internal and external providers, the same for evaluators, where in CSIS it was only external providers that had access to the system. We focused on a modular design for the case management solution itself with the service-oriented architecture, allowing for faster deployments and for more modular-based functionality. In terms of placement functionality, we've included the ability for non-DOE locations to be able to enter and manage seat availability information, as well as to be able to place students and rely on that information when placing students at non-DOE locations. Again, the meeting scheduler is interactive. It captures response, rescheduling. It looks very similar to what Microsoft Teams or Outlook offers. Document generation happens automatically within a workflow. So instead of working directly on a document, you're working on a modern web-based solution with forms and information that you're able to see and feel at your fingertips with documents generated afterwards. DocuSign capability or Adobe Sign capability for both users of SEDMS as well as parents using the parent portal via Nixa. And then a flexible translation solution where we're relying on word-based templates to allow for easier coordination with OLA to ensure that documents can be more quickly translated and sent out as necessary. Now, last but not least, overall project status. So we've covered the goals of the project, but I'd like to tell you about where we are currently. So number one, requirements. From a requirements perspective, we provided the requirement documents for referrals, early intervention, evaluations, IEP, provider management, evaluator management, and capacity planning to NYC Public Schools for their review. We're currently drafting requirements for placement, encounter attendance, reporting, and document management. We are wrapping up our first pass at development. And again, first pass just means it's going to internal testing for referrals, early intervention, document management, and evaluations. We've started the development of both IEP and administrative functionality. And very importantly, we are working currently with NYC Public Schools to determine a release and rollout plan, as well as timing for when the solution can be delivered and rolled out to both DOE staff, and of course to parents via the parent portal release. So there you have it. That's our update for the current state of the SCDMS project. If anyone has any questions, please feel free.
Thank you, Vadim. Thank you. And I know that I've seen a message in chat that we only have a few minutes left, but if it allows, I mean, we would love to answer any questions if anyone has some.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to my fellow council members in a minute, but I just want to make a comment here about accessibility. This presentation for me was incredibly difficult to follow. I have repeatedly requested the Office of Special Education that when there is a presentation slide, that those slides be printed for us. I got in my from watching my fellow council members look at this presentation on phones and on tablets and trying to blow things up while you speak very, very fast and go through it. So while I appreciate the time that you put in, I personally am very frustrated. I couldn't even begin to ask the question because I couldn't even begin to follow what was happening here. And so, I mean, this is the special, we are the Special Education Council. This is the Special Education Office. Very minimum, we give presentations. I don't know, it's not about, so I'm going to it's not. It should be a general thing across that anybody who comes to any of the councils. So if you want, I'm happy to be able to check this. You can have it. And we have requested it, but honestly, it shouldn't be on us to request that things be acceptable. You have to be giving me about this before you come. This is so frustrating for me. I have a migraine trying to figure this out. I'm sorry. Really, we have to plan this better for the future. This was so difficult.
And I will do a better job.
I appreciate that, but it's on anybody who's presenting to a group.
But that's ultimately the honest responsibility.
Okay. I just want to say that out loud, it's just so incredibly frustrating.
I will do a better job.
So do council members have questions? Mira, I just want to say that we are very much doing on time, so if everybody can try to keep their question to 2 minutes, that would be great. Can somebody let me know the beginning? Samira came up with, do you have a question? I have someone I like to do, right, and we have a question. Okay, so, Samira.
I don't know.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Thank you. And I agree having some. I was trying to look on my phone and Zoom in and listen at the same time, and so it's really difficult. Even if we have this, it would be really nice just to do that. And for folks at home watching, we're not actually playing on our phones. I also wanted, I had a question, I definitely missed it in all this information. Is there a place in the current portal or in any sort of access zones in different areas where we can locate incident logs for related services so that we can track if services when they're happening, for which one, and these are all at the school. I know that a lot of times therapy doesn't happen for whatever reason, that related services can happen, and it's not moved up. And so is there a way that we can kind of follow along to see when the provider logs in? I know that they log the form system, but we are really recording that information unless we request it. So I don't think that parents even know that they can track that. Well, we can't really easily track it as a problem.
Yeah. Val, did you hear that question? I could probably just respond, and we're at the point where we are starting to build modules around related services, and I think that's a great piece of feedback, and we will, speak forward.
It's not, they're not even. So, I'm sorry, just for the audience to be able to hear, I think people need to go to the class. If you're those reports, and because they're having a time, and then the big and the and Diane.
Good evening, everyone. My question is, while I listened, and it was a bit of a struggle trying to figure out all the comparison changes, I did not hear how your office is going to train or support parents who now need to go on this portal to be able to access information. So it's great to hear what the system does and how it's supposed to work in theory. But I did not hear anything about how you plan to support that IEP parent and say in their IEP conference, you talk about turning 3. Now the new parent in this new system from leading EI coming over here, are there going to be individuals who train how to use this new system so that I can in real time see what's happening or not happening? And is there going to be a place for them to get technical support if they don't get it first?
You guys want to take that or you want to jump in?
I just want to add that parents already have access to Nixa, and they have a very limited access to, they can see IEP screens. They can see what is the current IEP situation with their child. So we definitely trying to build parent portal is going to be very intuitive. So it's going to be something else that is going to require minimum training. But your point is taken. We'll definitely regroup and we'll get back to you.
I just want to get clarification on this replacing what already exists, like if I'm understanding correctly. This is, the intention is for this to replace the connection, correct? One, but Nixa will remain because this will live, the parent portal piece will live on the existing Nixa account. Okay. Glad that was fair. I had 2 concerns that feel free to take it back if you come back with real answers, but privacy breach, we've talked a lot about that in this council, and what I've heard with the IEP module allowing for multiple users and edits and changes. Twofold question in that. Privacy, can you assure the privacy of this information? You said you noted a lot of information being on that IEP module. And then what stuck out was the ability, I like the collaboration piece. I've heard from many providers or school-based support teams where it's like, so-and-so opened this and I can't now access it to make this one transportation change because they no longer are in that position. And it's like so I love the intent behind that. I want to make sure that these changes and edits are recorded in like real time, so we know who's opening up what, who made the changes, at what point, and were these to, confirmation that these were indeed changes that parents agreed to and consent, we're changing services and things like that. Can there be a notification to parents? Your IEP has changed something. But it does concern me, and I just want to hear what reassurances you guys have on those 2 fronts with the IEP module.
Sure. So I'm going to punt the majority of this to Content and Anna, as they are significantly more in the know. But in general, just to start us off, the current CCSE functionality for IEPs already allows access to multiple different users. The only difference is they are only able to edit it one at a time through essentially a checkout and lock process, right? On our side, we're guaranteeing the same level of privacy and security in that only users that are assigned to that specific case or that are relevant to that specific case have the ability to view anything related to that child, including the IEP, through the ability of this adding collaborators, right? Within the system itself, they're going to be able to make edits concurrently in terms of the different sections that these collaborators are responsible for, because even individual sections of the IEP sometimes have more than one contributor answering the various questions. So that's the functionality that we are building so that it does not have to be one person at a time, because that introduces additional lag in just the process of filling this out. But beyond that, Content Anna, please feel free to take over. I know you have a lot more that you can go into on the subject.
Sure, I apologize up front. For most of the call, I would say 90%, it's been very difficult for me to hear the conversations in the room. But from what I've heard, as a former special education teacher, special education director, one of the things that Anna and I, as subject matter experts working on this project, have made clear is that a well-written IEP is a team-built IEP. I want to clarify something I think that was colluded. So we will follow the same parameters in terms of who has right of access to the drafting of an IEP document. When it comes to things like the present levels of performance and getting those updates on goals and progress thus far, typically an IEP, as you all know, is written with a collaboration where I might email Anna if she's the speech pathologist and say, can you give me the latest goals? And then Anna emails me back, or she comes to the school and she drops off work samples. And there's a lot of professionals who are trying to collaborate to get that IEP drafted and to make sure that we have input. Same is true for reaching out to parents for present levels concerns, any changes they've noticed. And so the statement or the item or feature that we were describing is one that allows in the drafting phase, not post finalization, where you are perfectly right. It would be untoward for someone to then go and make changes without the team being convened or the parent notified. We're speaking of on the front end, something we heard in our stakeholder interviews, that it was cumbersome to try and email 15, 10 people, however many, to try and get an IEP drafted with full view of the settings, the ways that the child performs, and the needs. So that's what we're speaking to in terms of that feature, to allow collaboration when drafting documents. But then in terms of on the back end, there is event logging such that when actions are taken, you will see traceability. But in terms of a finalized IEP, it is not being suggested that any changes would be made without properly notifying the parent. I think I had heard that earlier in the conversation, that there were maybe some concerns about changes, the little bit that I caught, speaking to the child instead of the parent. And that's certainly not something that we're attempting to design in the system. And would you want to add to that?
Yes, much appreciated for that clarification. Thank you.
Sure, sure.
Diana, Heather, Shannon, and then Karen. So Diana.
Hi, I just wanted to say, too loud.
It's echoing. You have to mute your laptop. Can you hear me? Well. Okay, but I just think it sounds great, and I think it can help with one of the things I spoke about at an earlier meeting in terms of accountability. So that this face sheet, first the face sheet with the student profile can have a lot of information, especially information such as like Shannon mentioned with the blanket. Please do not try to take a blanket from him, things like that being on that face sheet for the IEP. So even if they're not reading the entire thing, maybe we can have some type of checkpoint so that we know that each person that's gonna work with this child has at least read the face sheet. So that's what I'm suggesting, maybe some type of accountability put in there initially, so that we know that people are at least reading the pertinent information about our children. Okay, sorry, was Heather there? Awesome.
So I think one of the questions I think was already answered, and I too have experienced what Shannon brought up, where my child did not have a speech provider for several weeks, and I was completely unaware of it until parent teacher conference, and I found out, my kid told me, like, oh yeah, I haven't had speech in like 3 weeks. And so I wanted to know if there would be real time, and then also a parent could go in and make sure that their child is receiving all their services, you know, in real time. And also just being aware of the amount of logins since COVID that parents have to keep track of, like logins to Sabbath Learning, login to HMH, login to NICA, login to Teach Hub, login. It's all a different login for everything, and so I just wanted to just keep bear in mind that that having an additional login for folks can be overwhelming, and can be a little barrier to parents using the system, even if the system is amazing. If they can't log into it, it doesn't matter. And then also, I noticed on one of the slides that, non-public schools were mentioned in there, and I know this is a work in progress, but not all our non-public school parents have access to Nixa. So if Nixa is the one way to access the Freedoms portal, there might need to be another access point for those parents, until those other things get like kind of resolved. And then I just wanted to know about calling back, so, I know there's gonna be a lot of reporting function in there, and I know this is very, like, we want to support our advocacy with data, real data, and to boil data can take months and months, sometimes, I think it took a year and a half for me to get data before. And so it would be really great if keeping confidentiality for sure, but things that we could pull data to see how many kids are missing services, like those just kind of key data points that we could maybe have access to or get easily through just directly through special education without necessarily having to do the full formal FOIL process would be really, really appreciated.
We should, I got a request for you a couple of days ago, likely, not next business meeting, that calendar meeting, the one after that, which we will,
Yeah, I mean, we're always, I don't know if that's trade for data, but I just know it's a cumbersome process, so this would be easier. And easier, just putting that out there. And I can play it.
Yeah, I just want to add, if I may, I know it was one of the points to expand Nixa access not only to public school families, but also to private students who attend private schools, and that's actually a work in progress. I do believe that we can definitely get a better clarification and confirmation, but as of right now, I mean, we had a discussions a few weeks back, and looks like Nixa is expanding to private schools as well. So that's a work in progress.
I was going to say the same. It's nearly a year to the date where we were presented last time, and that was one of the concerns that was taken back. That it was asked by this group to not have multiple sign-ins, so single sign-on, SSO as we call it, is a key feature. That data that's transmitted between CDMS and parent portal via Nixa, the parent will not have to memorize additional sign-ons for CDMS. I apologize if that wasn't made clear sooner. It's something that we had highlighted in the past. But in terms of the ability to be able to view and manage, that look and feel is taken into account. So there will not be a need for multiple logins. And as Val said, it was also addressed that we needed to solve for access in other settings outside of public schools. And so that, as he said, is in progress, so that email accounts will be offered for that sign-in as well, single sign-in experience. Yeah.
Shannon? So I wanted to say that, I wanted to talk about the access to the portal. So I know he said that, the parents are able to access it, but I know for a fact that a lot of parents are not able to access it because they don't have computers or cell phones. But there's a way that we can provide them with a computer because I know, like, I run a program where I help disabled parents apply for IEPs and stuff, and I have DV victims that don't have access and they come to my house to use the computer. So if there's a way that we could provide them computers, but not only that, with the portal system, if there's a way that maybe it can read the information or have somebody explain it, because I know when I was little, my mother couldn't read and I had to read the stuff for her and I didn't understand it. So, just to take less stress off the other kids that have the same situation. That's all I want to say. Thank you, Shannon. Karen, so Karen, I just want to point out we're at 8:10. We still have a lot of the agenda, so we can try to keep our questions. Karen, so I did it here if there was a song and so he did provide us the overview of the program. I did not hear a time frame as to when this would roll out. Can you all hear me? No, no. She asked for a time frame for when it's going to roll out.
Sure. So this is something we're currently working with NYC Public Schools to determine. So we don't have a time frame committed to just yet, but we are actively working with NYC Public Schools to come up with an acceptable release and rollout plan, along with the timeline for when this can go live.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, yes.
My second question is, has the DOE and your DIIT considered a soft launch or a pilot program to test it in a controlled environment and see how the information is transferring, the user access and user experience, or is it going to be a full rollout?
No, we definitely considering first option, as you mentioned, go with a pilot program with a smaller group of users. And that's something actually we're working with Team Experience to finalize, and we will discuss with internal stakeholders first before we will kind of like do the announcement to everybody else. But we are considering, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, in our opinion, for the system of this scale, we have to go with a soft launch.
Okay, and then my last is more just a follow-up to Maggie's point she's been putting on the chat. We would like to request the slides so that we can share with our community.
Absolutely, yes. Absolutely, yes. We'll share.
Okay, thank you so much. Put our inbox in the chat. Okay, so Maggie, so, anything further? There are questions, a good question in the chat. If somebody wants to, yeah, so if you, any member of, sorry, actually, any members of the public who have questions, feel free to raise your hand, and if one of the members will call on. And if there are no hands raised, if there are questions in the chat that you all want to amplify.
So Christy is just asking if there's a, will there be maybe a picture of what the front end will look like what will parents see, like a mock-up, I guess, is probably what she's asking about.
Sure. So the parent portal module is one of the next ones that we're focusing on. So we don't yet have these wireframes created. We have started the identification of what should be there, how it will look. Once we have it ready, they will of course be distributed within to internal NYCPS stakeholders, and then what happens from there, we discuss next steps in terms of getting more feedback as necessary from maybe parents or other groups.
Oh, Christy has her hand raised, actually, I'm Slivers, moving for herself.
Oh, no, thank you. I just wanted to add you can ask the second question. I'm jumping to something different. I'm looking up Kendo as you speak about it, and I see where you're talking about compliance and ADA and things of that nature. And as a parent, could you speak more to what I know Kendo looks like? It's very usable, usability for parents, etc. But can you break down the ADA components that will be usable for our parents? Like, is dyslexia a part of what you do? Like, I know when we have ADA compliance, we have it for people who may not be able to see or only hear, etc. But for people who cannot read well, do you have a dyslexia component? What components do you have for the ADA that are accessible for our parents? Thanks.
Sure. So in general, the application is built around proper proportions in terms of contrast between typography, text colors, and other things, as well as a focus on proper sizing for typography across the board. Again, that's not necessarily a solution for dyslexia, but it does help when you're able to clearly make out text and the general hacks and items that exist to make it easier. But in addition to that, ADA compliance requires screen reader and ARIA support, which is not only included by default with Kendo, but it's also something that we're including in any custom functionality we build, so that anyone that's also using a screen reader, whether they have some form of blindness or color blindness, or they have difficulty reading, they're also able to leverage text-to-speech or a voice reader or a screen reader to actually interact with and understand what's happening in the application. Beyond that, just for ease of use, both for dyslexia and in general, we're following some level of guided workflows where there's informational sections where you can hover to see additional info on how to interact with something. There's very clear call to actions text that defines what you need to be doing within specific sections. And then we've also made sure that any call to action buttons in terms of things like submitting or canceling or providing consent are very bold and very visible so that users of the system are clearly able to understand where they need to focus their attention on a screen.
Just a follow-up question. Do you have any component that breaks down things in layman's terms? You know how when we go on Microsoft, there's a little, icon that says, hey, is that something that's incorporated in what you're expressing now, where it's like it's broken down, it's broken so far down that anyone who is not tech savvy can understand how to use the system?
I'm assuming you're referring to Clippy the paperclip, which is a
Yes.
concept I haven't gotten to use in many years, but I have enjoyed it. So unfortunately, at the moment, we haven't planned for it. Now, we do have quality guides and training guides in terms of how certain screens function and how to interact with them. But at the moment, we haven't considered something like an AI assistant or something like a Clippy that exists within the application to guide users and to answer questions. It's something we can certainly discuss, but it's not something we've looked into thus far.
I would think that that might be something to tap into, just considering the population that we're serving. Just something to put on the radar. Thank you so very much.
Okay, so I'm going to say that if there are any other members of the public that have questions, please put your questions in the chat and we will collect them and we will send them to the IT and the Office of Special Education, and we will get answers that we will follow up with at our next meeting. It is now 8:14 and I think we need to close this portion of the presentation and move on to the rest of the agenda. Thank you, John. Thank you to everyone else from the Office of Special Ed and the IT for your presentation, and we look forward to getting the slides.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
That's before I go, I would like to thank you just reach out and
Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the election of the new treasurer. We can have would anybody like to nominate himself or someone else to be treasurer? Going once. Okay, so we'll table that. We'll table that in the next meeting. Try it. Okay, and then on next is the approval of minutes. So we'll start with September 20th. Has everybody read the September 20th minutes? I make the motion to move those to that. I'm sorry. Okay, so let's. So, are there any corrections or changes to the September 20th minutes? I have not submitted.
I think that, I'm not sure if Councilmember Along was exempt for those. Okay, so it's under. I would modify it.
Any other thing? I think it was on the leaders on Susan. I don't have it. We want to table that. And we check it. Okay. Can I get a motion on the table on the? Can I get a motion on the table to table with September 20th? Okay. All in favor? Yeah. Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. September 20th minutes on table. October 5th. I second. All in favor? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, October 5th minutes are tabled until the next meeting. Next is co-president's reports. I okay. All right, member reports. I have a quick one. I have member reports. I'm going to start. Okay, literacy advisory council. So I would say, 2 meetings this academic year, but due to conflict, tonight is the meeting I'm not able to attend. Last regular meetings were also held in our council meetings, so I will have to figure out how to implement that. They do have office hours, but I work to see if they
Excuse me. Can you speak towards the monitor so everyone can hear you in the audience?
Sorry. Thank you. Okay, can everyone hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Okay, so some information that will be shared in the chat for individuals interested in looking over LIC and New York City Reese that John spoke about earlier. I'll check that in a minute. There's 3 documents through the NYC Schools portal. It's NYC Reads, the 2023-2024 literacy shifts and last year's literacy expectations. In addition, LAC is having a sign-in event on October 25th and October 30th. It's NYCPS Literacy Collaborative is evaluating the ELA curriculum, which is HMH into literature, EL, ELA, and amplified ELA.
You're saying louder, please. I can hear you because I'm in the same room, but they can't hear you in the audience.
I don't know how much louder it is. Okay. AT pilot. We are in the process of re-engaging conversations with the Office of Special Education to bring the AT pilot to Harbor School, and we are hoping to follow up with this for the middle school pilot. That our next meeting is November 8th, so we will have some more to report in the November meeting. And 3 quick updates on yesterday's PEP meeting. They established 3 new committees, a bylaws committee, a budget and finances, and a school utilization committee. And if you can't hear me, I will just submit the minutes. Can everyone hear me? No, I don't want to see it. Middle school admissions have begun and will run through December 8th. And families need to know that there is a My School account that they have to go through for access. And that's all I have in mind. Any other members or reports? Okay, Heather?
My report will be very, very quick. I'm just speaking, I guess on behalf of the citywide council for District 75. They have several vacancies that they really need to be filled. So if you are a parent with a District 75 student, we highly encourage you to apply to those positions. It's a really great opportunity to advocate for your children and advocate for the students in District 75. I'm gonna drop the link in the chat to the DOE's website that has the link to the application in all the different languages. So please encourage parents to apply. And if you know parents who aren't here, please spread the word.
I just wanted, people should definitely reach out to CCSE 75, but I believe they held their interviews already, so I'm not sure that they were. That's one we made, say one, yeah. Yeah, they definitely never see. Just to clarify. Diana, remember?
Yes, can you hear me okay? I attended the dyslexia webinar. It was called Effective Practices to Support Students with Dyslexia. I thought it was pretty informative, so I just wanted to highlight some key areas that they mentioned in the webinar. And so one of the things they discussed was just trying to educate families and educators to know what to look out for, so they can see that when a student is struggling. So some of the main areas where they say students struggle is phonemic awareness, the ability to identify and manipulate individual sounds. Once they're able to get the sounds, then you can move to introduce letters. And they just know that the majority of children that have trouble reading is due to some sort of phonological deficit. They also talked about difficulties in morphology, understanding the smallest, most basic meaning of words and how they are formed. Students who do not understand this structure have trouble recognizing, understanding, and spelling words. One of the other areas is syntax. Our words are arranged to create meaning. Children with dyslexia face a specific deficit in written syntactic awareness. And then also semantics, the study of words, sentences and phrases, and the meaning that is drawn from them. Students with dyslexia are often unable to properly attach words to their meanings while reading or speaking. So they just kind of spoke about the main thing that they're focusing on in teaching is direct, explicit, and systematic instruction for these students, as well as immediate corrective feedback, so that they can see where the students are struggling. And they spoke about the future of supporting children with dyslexia, where they'll have like a tier system, where there'll be, tier 1 will be the general education provided by the teacher with this, with like the basic structure and instruction. Tier 2, supplemental, I'm gonna do Tier 2, supplemental intervention with progress monitoring. This will provide additional time for learning on top of tier 1. And then tier 3, if the student is still struggling, then they will receive intensive intervention. So they'll double down and they will do the intervention more times a week, more time, give the students more time so that they'll provide them with additional opportunity to engage with the material and therefore give them more opportunities to learn. And so after the instruction and interventions are provided, then there will be diagnostic assessments to determine whether the students are making progress. So by using these assessments, it will shed light on what the student needs to work on so the teachers can focus on those skills. And then they just provided several resources that I have put in the chat that were very helpful to kind of look out for some of the assessments that they will be using, some of the kind of teaching tools that they'll use. There's different legislation in process now for teaching children with dyslexia in schools and things of that nature. So I'll put that information in the chat.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up question. That webinar, is that accessible? For, like, is it recorded so people can watch it after the fact? Or I'm not sure. Okay, maybe just put your notes on the website. Okay. If they send you a link to the recording. Okay. Mark, did you have a question? I'm just wondering, did any members attend the live stream of the impartial hearing? Live stream, if anybody attended that, I think if it's possible to come around quickly. Did you want?
I'll let you, because I was going to talk about it.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I just tuned into the live stream. My understanding is they go before several judges to see if they can even be approved for an appeal. And Tamara was listening into, so she can also chime in for a while ago, a lot happens since then. So I'm not gonna say it didn't sound promising, but there was a little bit, it wasn't the most promising. They were trying to argue that, that the move was not appropriate because the impartial hearing officers that were assigned upstate now are basically excluded from 98% of the cases. And that was unfair, and it would somehow, change their credentialing or their certification. There was also concerns raised that because impartial hearing officers are operating under a supervisor is looking over their cases, that they actually aren't impartial, that it is actually two different people making decisions, and that was not an okay thing. And then they also found out that they were supposedly working with per diem officers and oath officers, and that was never advertised, it was never put out there, and so they made that argument as well. So I'm not sure if that is enough to sway them making a decision to allow an appeal, but that's kind of what I walked away with from listening in. And Tamara, you can, if I missed something, please feel free to correct me.
Can you just take 30 seconds just to say what you said about moving the
Yeah, so this was so right before de Blasio left office, he moved the impartial hearing process into the oath office in the city of New York. And many advocates have said that this is not a fair way to resolve the backlog of cases through special education, because the city oath office is under the umbrella of the mayor, who is in control of our schools. And how can they be impartial if they work for the mayor, who is in control of our schools? So they're not really impartial. And they also brought up that they have 20,000 cases in the backlog, and DOE is referring around 500 cases a week to the impartial hearing office at Oath. So it's not even resolving that. It's not really doing what it was intended to do to begin with. So just putting that out, that came up as great. Thank you, Dr. Sorry. No, that's a great summary. Thank you. Lupe. I know one thing. Oh, okay.
So yes, thank you, but I knew that the amount of information would exhaust all my time. I did want to flag for the council and the public that next Wednesday, I think the 25th, there will be another hearing in regards to the Committee of Education in conjunction with Public Safety. It's the oversight for new safety initiatives in New York City public schools. And it is regarding the police department's response to students in emotional crisis in public schools. I think this council is well aware that many of our students with disabilities are end up being the majority of these students in these emotional crises. And most of the time it's when services are not being, provided, that they are enduring incidents such as these that end up becoming really punitive. And I just encourage folks to, be the voice for and be the advocate for our students in this regard, and take it up amongst our city council. I will definitely be listening in. And then updating for I have not made this aware to the council or the public, but I've been sitting on the task force that is addressing transportation for our student contemporary housing since last December. And because this is historically been an issue that I've been advocating for some years, even prior to the pandemic. So to your question, Mark, I'm hoping I can help in, I wouldn't say alleviate or answer it in any way, but we have been working on this issue just in general. Historically, we've seen communities suffer a great deal when shelters have closed down. That's just, it's happened. And we see how hard the communication between DHS and OPT can be, even in a system where they do talk to each other. So with your concern in regards to the 60-day rule, I'm assuming is what you were referring to, I'm just as concerned, and I ask the public and many other advocates out there to speak up, because not only will this disrupt already dysfunctional busing system, it will really disrupt these families and whatever. Let's be real, as a New Yorker, we know you can't get services in 60 days. It's just not possible. And to think that our students are going to be impacted by this, we've seen students from districts they don't have to transfer, but a lot of times they end up transferring because they don't get a bus route. We know we have families that don't have a bus route as of today. And to think that they're going to be able to get a bus route for students that are coming out of borough is just ridiculous. And not cost efficient by any means. So again, it's not something that we as a council can do. But our recommendations that is addressing the system as a whole, I hope will be finalized by the end of this year. And I will be waiving this, and I hope all of you, because it is going to impact our students with disabilities, ability to get to and from school, and just that continuity across the board. So.
Any other members have reports? I'm going to move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our meeting schedule and topics. Everybody can turn their attention to in your folder, you have a list of our meeting schedule as well as the DOE calendar. We have a couple of dates that we need to address. So the first issue is that we have a resolution to combine our meetings. We actually just have 2 dates that are not combined yet, which are January meetings and our April meetings. So I would propose that we seem to be meeting on the third, within the 3rd week in our combined meetings. So that would just mean that we would remove the January 4th meeting and we would make the January 18th be our combined meeting. And the same in April 4th, we removed and April 18th will be our combined meeting. Okay. So we can just talk, can we just talk about the dates and then Rose?
Are you moving into the 3rd Wednesday or the 3rd Thursday?
Those are Thursdays. Those are both Thursdays. I'm gonna deal with Wednesday. Yeah. So the 2 issues on the table are that we have those 2 dates that need to be combined, and then we have 3 days that we previously combined for a Wednesday meeting, and that day of the week, that Wednesday is the conference. The Wednesday meeting, CCHS uses this room, PEP has their meetings, CCP 75 has their meetings. So I am supposing that we take a look back at those Wednesday dates and see if we can pick Thursday. So I've been opening up the discussion. We can start with our next meeting, which is right now, scheduled for Wednesday, November 15th.
I propose November 2nd. The first Thursday of the month. Just, and yeah, that it's a tricky month.
Yeah, every Thursday. I do see that second, that November 2nd. It does offer parents an afternoon and evening parents to the conference, so that gives them a date. So
It's also not specifically B75.
And that's what I look at.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I think the legal impact.
November.
Yeah. I put the.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Anyone else have anyone with objections to November 2nd?
Does it leave to
Pretty much. The 16th is a possibility. I mean, those are the Thursdays on the table. Each one of them is a reason why it's not great. So it's for us 16th of the yeah,
And that one is only in the evening. I think it's like out of all the Thursdays, they're all parent teacher, but the November 2nd was the only day that they had 2 options, meaning it wasn't just an evening option where we knew that, well, if you had your parent. It's the least impacting of the participation.
The night of 75.
Yeah, 75 is on the 30th. That's why.
And then so that leaves us with the second and this.
There's my holiday as well, but.
If everyone else can do that, I'll figure it out.
Is there any objection? Objection to the second? We're gonna go up over after we'll go over the whole thing. Then the next Wednesday is in March. So we turn over the view.
I'm sorry, I know that's not brought up and totally missed it, but is there a reason why November 30th doesn't?
I think we said that we 75.
It did not, there's not on here. No. It's just after the recess for Thanksgiving.
Oh, that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We do the 30th.
Yeah. November 30th.
I just thinking we should have these now. And then
Okay. Great, perfect. So if we look at March 20th, it's also a Wednesday, so, I think we have the same issue in March, which is that it's a no event we can compensate. So, I mean, you can look again towards the end of the month. Yeah.
So March Thursdays, just so you know, it's the 7th, the 14th, and 21st.
So the 28th is the only week that's not the 28th calendar.
Yeah, it's the day before break too. I mean, listen. Yeah.
You know, if you okay with that?
I do.
The 28th of March. We're just looking at the Thursday in March. And the only day that doesn't have a parent teacher conference is the 28th.
But it's the eve of Easter.
Right.
Easter.
Yeah.
Right.
So is there anything you want to vote on today?
I think maybe then March 7th, we go back to like, if we're doing for November, we do March 7th.
How do you feel about March 7th? And then the final one is May 15th, it's also a Wednesday. I believe we have the same issue. Yeah, May 15th is a Wednesday, right, that Wednesday?
So I can give you the dates of Thursdays and May 2nd, 9, 16, 23, and 30.
May 2nd is open for the DOE calendar, the 9th, the 16th, and 23rd are all parent-teacher conferences for different levels. You have elementary, December 5, K-12, 6-12. So May 2nd, is that completely fine? You okay with that?
I mean, the challenge will be the April or the April 18th, it's close to back to back, if that's really late autumn, instead of like.
I mean,
We could do April 4th instead of April 18th that month, since we're doing March 7th. Mark brought up the fact that we would just be having a meeting kind of back to back between April 18th and May 2nd. What I suggested, since March is in the beginning of the month, March 7th, we stick with April 4th.
Yeah.
And May 2nd.
I think that's a good position.
Okay.
I'm gonna go over them. Okay, so according to the changes we just made, that would make our meetings November 30th. And these are all Thursdays. November 30th, December 14th, January 18th, February 15th, March 7th, April 4th, May 2nd, June 20th.
The only question I have is November, I thought, and I could be wrong, but it was November 7th. So it's not.
No,
We changed the 30th because there was nothing.
So we have a bit of a stretch between now and our next meeting. But we'll give us time for the next agenda. Special meeting. So this. No, June, and then somewhere in there, they need to schedule items to think about, so we can look at that, think about that going forward. Now, I know that the time is late, and so we can't necessarily come up with meeting topics for all of our meetings, but I recommend that we come up with at least meeting topics for December, November, and December, so that we can make sure we have information of our announcements and our translators in the audience. The application process closes, as we said, Carolyn said in December. I'm wondering how people feel about doing, you had mentioned the District 75 in enrollments.
Yeah, I was gonna say admissions for November. It's-
I have a question, are we totally accountable, so first?
Sure, we can do that. Okay, so somebody want to put a motion on the table to approve the calendar changes?
I make a motion to approve the calendar changes.
Any, all in favor?
Yeah.
Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, the calendar meeting dates have changed. So topics for November.
Admissions, like an enrollment admissions, I'll have them come and talk, give us parents the last week, we'll have a week, 10 days left, I think, right? Closes December 11th. Or 7th.
No, December 8th for middle school, December 11th for high school.
Okay, yeah, but it's like within that 2 week and otherwise it would be, it's 2 weeks, so that's just.
And per Heather's suggestion, I would propose that we also include District 75 and one of that and District 75 actually on the application process.
And get like the cases and use people to bring them in or not. Because I know that it's like.
My only thing about that is that the application process for ASD never, it's just a rolling application and it never aligns with it, like the, it will open the account on something.
I don't know if you saw, I was able to.
Okay, so we'll take it one at a time. So I'm gonna put a motion to approve admissions at the top of the meeting. I place a motion to add admissions for November. Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so that's November, December. I was interested in proposing, I mean, still we have a lot of pressing issues, and I know we're ready to propose something about students and their housing. We were interested in learning about the new online school, and what implications that will have for students in special education. Shannon had brought up the topic around bullying and respect for all. We have a lot of different things that we can look at. I like that.
Yeah, and I think that this is so important.
Yeah, let everybody go around. So Diane.
Yeah, no, the bullying, I think is something that we all unfortunately deal with our children. It's just one of those things that comes with our children, unfortunately. And I think it's just a big topic that doesn't get enough attention.
Anyone else want to comment?
Just, I was gonna agree with her, I know like, District 9 just have very human-centered schools kick off and just kind of. The hearing that's taking place even next week, I think. There's a lot to be shared and.
Anyone else?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm new, so I have questions about how this happens. So for meeting discussion, is it per month, like a calendar meeting? You can only discuss one special topic, or can you divide that time? So like admissions might take longer, but bullying could actually pull in other topics, and there's something that I know that I've been reading a lot about, and I think it's a little contentious, and I think it could be, this might be a good place for the conversation to get started. And so I just wanted to bring the topic here, and it doesn't necessarily need to happen in December, but I wanted to put it on the radar because I feel like we have these difficult conversations, right? And it doesn't necessarily need to be difficult. I think that John might be helpful in facilitating this conversation at least, but the topic was the catering. I'm like, I'm just sick, so I don't wanna like breathe. I should have brought a mask. So the conversation that I would like to have is with superintendents across every district, right? And principals and directors. In the public advocate's office, I think would be great too, around how are we training teachers and staff, educators in schools to deal with fentanyl and fentanyl awareness. I think mostly right now, I'm concerned about all of it, but I'm concerned about the handling of fentanyl. So there's been several cases just in the past month, that where preschoolers who go on trips, you know, to like the local playground down the street even, or to the park, several parks in Brooklyn, 3 different parks, where they're picking up full vials of fentanyl because they're like candy, you know, they're like pink, green, like little toys. And the teachers aren't always, and the staff and that, you know, the administrators aren't always, they don't know what to do necessarily, right? And so there's been instances where parents weren't notified, that, you know, kids have to go to the hospital or didn't go to the hospital. So what are we doing to empower educators who are on the ground with this situation? And I think then more broadly, right, that can be kind of like how we get into it, I guess. But then how are principals and staff having conversations with our students, right, around fentanyl? And this is, you know, it's a different time. I have conversations with my son that are pretty open about this, and I didn't have the same concern when I was in my, you know, my years, my younger years. And I think it's important, and I don't think it's something that should just be happening in high school. I think this should be happening in middle school. I think this could even happen in elementary school, but it's how are we going to train staff and prepare? And I think it's superintendents that need to talk to principals, but John and other directors, and I'm sorry. I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I think it's great. I'm making people some agreement. To me, that feels like a big topic to mix with bullying. So I would surely not necessarily together.
I just wanted to make it, I feel like I mentioned this to you, Tam, when we shared one of those incidents with us, but the chancellor, although not, and just make sure everyone else can, although it was not highly publicized, New York City Public Schools just launched a huge initiative regarding fentanyl and training of the administration of Narcan in every public school. So maybe we ask them to come and share a little bit more about that initiative and also the training that is taking place when it comes to the students with disabilities. I think to tie it into this council, because I agree with you, Sam. I mean, that's a really wide umbrella, and it's an umbrella that impacts all students. But a way that we can bring it to center it in this space is in District 7. I mean, even tying in, maybe collaborating with District 75 on this, and our English language learners. I mean, all 3 councils, because is it language acceptable? Is it, you know, like what is it look like?
Yeah, I think this is great. So what I'm gonna suggest is that again, we have a document where we can start with our ideas. If you need an email to me, we can email it out. And so we should start brainstorming these things. I want to keep us a little focused on this November meeting. Mark, I know you want to say something. Just, we have about 9 minutes left. So just I'm sorry. So Shannon.
I just want to say maybe because, as violence and kids are bringing.
Yeah. So, I'm really not, yeah, I'm gonna encourage people to put these ideas in the document, but right now, that's what do we agree that we want bullying, bullying, and overall, and we can round that topic out.
Can I just add one thing on bullying? Is there a student that is doing any action around anti-bullying, and it would be really great to pull students in to kind of talk to, you know, what they're experiencing and how what they're doing.
Now that we have the topic, we can start to round out exactly speakers to be, so, and I'm gonna put a motion on the table that bullying be topic December meeting, bullying, which is.
I make a motion to make our December calendar meeting topic on bullying.
I second. Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstention? Okay, so we have those 2 months. Somebody would like to make a motion to table the rest of the topics until the next meeting. And we don't need 9 minutes. So unless it is really, go ahead. It's the council. You want to make it about one thing or that? I'm sorry, we have 9 minutes to.
I didn't know that was a member report. I thought it was. Sorry. But it's.
Actually, you just pointed out, I actually. But we are rapidly at a time, so,
It's fine.
okay, so we are making a motion to table the topics until.
I made a motion to table.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, any abstentions? All right, we'll table those topics. We now have. We have unfinished business, new business, public comment, we did that, sorry. So under new business, we have the vacancy, the CCHS, the member vacancy and the township control. I would like, well, here's the thing, we just need to reach out to the candidates for CCHS and we need to be in special meeting to hold the interviews. Okay, so, will you contact the candidates, is it 4 candidates?
Yes, I thought that tonight I reached out to them. So I reached out to all the candidates and everyone is still interested of the candidates, so they're asking for a date, so I guess even myself, Venus co-president, we set up a special meeting date for 3 members to do that.
Okay, so the CCSE member vacancy, I just want to put out there that we have, since we just did a huge round of interviews, we are allowed to, if we agree, we can pull a candidate from those interviews. I know everybody was not on the council at that time, but those interviews are recorded. So if people approve of this process, this will allow us to move along really quickly. We can distribute the interviews to everybody, and please sign a second. Distribute the interviews to everybody, and then we can vote on a candidate.
So I have a question, the CCH HR interview, we had 4 candidates that applied specifically for those positions, and we have one vacancy. I'm just a little confused, I know what you talked about the high school vacancy. Are you referring now to
the
our vacancy?
Yeah.
Okay, so the high school vacancy, will still interview for
yes.
and instead of opening it up for new people, we're gonna just take from the pool that we already had for the new vacancy on this side.
Yes. So do we need to vote on it? I think we need to. That I would like you on selecting the candidate from the interviews we've already done.
No, you want to vote on the candidate now?
No. We just agree on the process, we don't have to. Okay, so we will get the interviews distributed to all the members, we will look at them, and then, can we call a special meeting to, how do you guys will vote on it?
I make a motion that we choose the date for a special meeting. So that we can at least be doing before we walk out of here, for the interview for the high school, and these for the high school.
Yeah, sure. People want to throw these out. Maybe a couple of dates so that the candidates.
Yes, does that have to be in person, that special meeting? Yes. Let's see.
No, to interview the candidates, no.
Okay, I'm sorry. Just the meeting, you could be the candidates. No, if you're not making any decisions, you do not have to be.
Yeah.
Only when you vote.
We can interview the candidates, and if we have a forum, we can go into special meeting after the interview, so it's that.
I mean, but it's asking virtual versus in person.
Does that have to be in person?
That-
We don't, not waiting, you don't have to. Right. It's basically a meeting. Right, it's not a house.
So a committee does not have to be a person. But in a committee, you cannot make decisions. Right. So you can input the candidates. Then when you have to meet with vote with them, then you have to, that would be, especially like, an executive session. If you want to discuss the candidates in an executive session, then it only happens in the context of the meeting.
Right, that's why it's especially meeting that.
Correct.
Right, so, if for special meeting, maybe Thursday, because we know Thursdays are generally the meeting that we
Interview, whenever you want, right, putting that as a vote.
With a special meeting though, there's that. So then,
For online, and
it can be online.
Yes.
Not, maybe, that's not what I heard. That's not. what I heard. No, I'm not talking about a committee meeting, a special meeting. See, thank you, that's where I was.
I make a motion to form an ad hoc committee to do interviews for the CCSE.
You go ahead.
No favor?
Now, I'm the chair. You have 120 seconds to find it.
I go with the like third, like, maybe can we meet next Thursday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that okay, folks? Yes, Thursday, 6:30 online.
Okay, what's that date? The 25th. Goes to the week, contact the candidates and see if they're free on the 26th.
I can pretty much meet any evening.
Alright, so we can start with the 26th. Alright, the next item on the agenda is the town hall for chancellor. So I propose a motion to table that for the next meeting. So somebody motion to table the town hall for chancellor for the next meeting. I'm going to table the town hall discussion into the next meeting. Second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any, you opposed, can, not have a conversation?
Not maybe, we needed to pick a date, I think we had.
We need to.
At our last meeting, we were asked to pick a date, we didn't have to go into detail how we wanted to organize it. So that the chance we could then put it on his calendar. Yes, so we let another one pass by. And we don't meet again until November 30th. That further pushes out the time, which not to say that he won't be available, but given all the other things, that becomes a big excuse for not being available. I'm just asking, I know we have less than a minute or two, but I'm important because I think we should at least think about it, think of it now and next year.
Okay, the motion is on the table, so.
We're just.
All in favor, please just. So my, sorry, there's a motion on the table, so the motion on the table is to table it, so if we don't want to table it now, let's take a vote. All in favor of tabling the discussion about the town hall? All opposed? To table the discussion? Anyone abstaining? Okay, so we will pick a date for town hall.
My question is, so I thought, do we have to do a town hall every year or every term? Because last time we met one a term, which actually gives us 2 years to make a date. That's why I wanted to.
Then it is
What's the term? Yeah, so, yeah, that's my.
Yeah.
And then the board is
Question.
early if you start.
Okay, so. So we have to, we want to correct those dates and we did it.
I'm curious. You said it doesn't have to happen early in the term. So when you table it, and that's fine. You may have the next term, next year, 2024, do that. I'm talking about, starting with the, July 1st, 2024.
So can they, I swear that there will be a conversation, I swear that there will be a little bit of back and forth, if we were used to telling the month, then I will go to the chancellor and see what the ability. Like if we say we prefer any Thursday in May.
We prefer any Thursday in January. Okay, no, I'm serious, I mean, kind of what you're concerned about that, and I communicate with you. Yep, so now you have any well done, this is 9 or 10.
I have a question, last meeting before we came on, Anthony had said in 2024. Because the question came up at that point, did we need to have a town hall in this year? And he stated, yes, you can go on, but we didn't have quorum at the time, so we couldn't make a decision, but he suggested that at some point we choose it. So I do understand that it happens once within a term.
Yeah.
Is it possible to get clarity for us on that? Because we were given one set of information, and now you're saying it's a 2-year span of time.
I mean, that's what the law says. The law says, but I'm just kind of hoping that the chancellor wants to meet with you. Or the end of the school, by the end of the summer, maybe I can go back and check.
Well, I mean, at the time, people were saying, well, if it's a term, why does it have to be now? But he had asked in the first place that.
Okay, so that's that question created. The law says that. Alright, and you have a question. The law says the CCSE. But the chancellor is. Okay, so we voted to pick a date, or people want to pick a date, or you want to be with. I would like to take, given this one is like. This is gonna be rushed. Okay, right, so maybe somebody, maybe one of these months to say whatever. Okay, so Carolyn's made a motion to table discussion, is there a second? Okay, all in favor of tabling the discussion until the next meeting? Okay. Anyone opposed? Thanks, one, two. Okay, so we are coming to the end here, a little bit of time, I have one more piece of new business, which is that as of say this meeting, I am stepping down as co-president of the CCSE. I appreciate everybody interested in me in this position, and it has been a pleasure to work in this capacity. But I am no longer able to fulfill this role. So I will be stepping down. I believe that Mrs. Carolyn will step up. I think it means that the co-presidency is dissolved. Right. We will have a whole new elections. We have probably not enough time if there's anyone in the public that would like to make a comment. Is there anything in the public? Yes. Okay. Does anybody in the public have anything they would like to say quickly before we have to adjourn? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn our calendar meeting? I have a question. Go ahead. I acknowledge, I skipped the committee report. We haven't had a committee meeting, so it was an accident, but can we get a motion to table the committee report for the next meeting? I think we'll be for the meeting. I make the motion to table. Can I get a second? Okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the committee report is tabled, and we are going that out. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? So can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting? Can I get a second? Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Okay. 2 oppositions to adjourning the meeting. Any abstentions? Okay, 3 oppositions. So we should stay on. Anyway, so we'll continue the day. That's right.